Okay, welcome back to the Road to Retirement. My name is Chris Anselmo, and here with my cohort, Tony Shore.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, good to be here with you, Chris. Crazy week we've had, right?
Yeah. Look, it was a crazy election cycle.
It
I'm
was.
glad if anything, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, I am really glad it's over.
Um,
And the markets seem to be happy with the results, right?
yeah, I think Mr. Elon Musk made $1 billion or so the first day. So, because Tesla went up like 15% in one day or something.
Yeah, it did. It was crazy.
So, no matter what side of the fence our listeners are on, I thought we would talk a little bit about how do we take advantage of this, considering that I think we all agree that the tax rates are probably not going to go up. They're set to expire in at the end of 2025 and revert to the higher rates that they were before.
So in 1 year, they were set to expire.
So, what are some things we look at when we're trying to take advantage of the tax code? And I think we've talked about these before, but I thought that we had a little renewed effort because of the Trump's win. And I think if I am I right, I think they won the House and the Senate. So
Yeah. It looks like they'll have both. I think the House is. It looks like they won back the Senate and probably the House. So
yeah,
the Republicans control all three branches of government. So that's good news for Republicans and a lot of listeners out there. But the bad news of that is anything that happens in the next 4 years, they will own it.
yeah. Well,
they will own it.
So,
yeah.
But I do think it's again, no matter what side of the fence you're on, I think it is an opportunity for everybody to take advantage of these lower tax rates. I mean, who doesn't want lower taxes, right?
Right.
So
you have a year for sure, and the promise is that they'll extend it or keep lowering taxes, but we will see. We hear that promise from a lot of politicians.
Well, something's got to change because, the middle class is, I don't think taxes are the biggest thing. I mean, the inflation, I think, was the biggest issue for most people, their pocketbook. I mean, cost of groceries and things like that, and cost of insurance, cost of utility, everything went up. And part of that was the cost of gasoline. So, my brother has a big produce company. He has maybe 80 or 90 trucks on the road. And he said, look, when diesel fuel goes up, everything across the United States is shipped, right? So when you're bringing in produce from California, and it used to be $15,000 to bring in a truck, and now it's $30,000 to bring a truck, you gotta raise the price of the produce that's on the truck, right? So,
right.
So I think a lot of it's going to start with if we can get gas and especially diesel prices down, because the average consumer, you see all these trucks on the road for Walmart and all. Yeah, they're all burning diesel, right? So we got to get that price of diesel down. But so on our thing, tax wise, what we normally see that we try to accomplish, and not as many people take advantage as I think they should, but so we've talked about Roth IRAs on other shows for our listeners. So the difference between a regular IRA, Tony, the regular IRA, you put money away, what we call tax deferred. So you don't pay the tax. Let's say you put $5,000 away. So the deal with the IRS is don't tax man the $5,000. Now give me a tax deduction. And hopefully when I retire, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket than when I was working. So I'll pay the tax later. Now, the flip side, the Roth IRA says, don't give me the tax deduction now. But the deal is everything's tax-free. There's some rules. You got to hold it 5 years. You have to be 59 and a half, all that kind of stuff. But the deal is I'm going to give up the tax deduction today for a tax-free retirement later. So, but most people didn't. Most people probably our age didn't start putting money in Roth IRAs. We put it in an IRA or 401k.
Or a traditional 401k or traditional IRA, right? The majority of people.
Right. So those plans are tax deferred. So Tony, sure you guys have 401k there at Gradient.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully all self-funded by Chuck and Tammy. No.
Increase that match.
Yeah,
Increase
yeah.
that match. Yeah.
Chuck will see this. I think I'm going to Chuck's house in I think it's February or something out in Arizona. But
yeah.
So anyhow, so you have all this money accumulated in your just let's call it a retirement plan, whether it's 401k, 403b, whatever. So all that money is going to be taxable when you take it out. So do you want to pay the tax now when the rates are down, or do you want to pay the tax, in 20 years from now, when you're ready to retire? Who knows what the tax rate's going to be?
Right.
These are some of the lowest tax rates we've had. Like, I've been doing this since 1984.
That's the lowest. I mean, it's historically low tax rate.
Right. So why not take advantage of it? So most people, how you take advantage of it is something called the Roth conversion, right? So the first thing I would look at, though, besides Roths, are you can take the money out of your IRA, pay the tax, and your biggest bang for your buck might be life insurance, right? Because life insurance is tax-free to a recipient, and you can build up cash value in your life insurance. So if you have let's say you have $1 million death benefit, and throughout your life there's cash building up in this investment or this life insurance policy,
sure,
you can withdraw that cash tax-free to live off of while you're alive. So if you can't, so the alternative, you can't get life insurance because you're not healthy enough, then the Roth conversion might be the second alternative. So the Roth conversion kind of works like this. Let's use $100,000 out of your IRA. Today's rates, you're probably going to pay, let's say you pay $25,000 in taxes, and then you have $75,000 left. So the issue then is that you could do it two ways. You could pay the tax from the conversion like that, and so $75,000 would end up in your Roth IRA. And then the deal there again is if we keep it for 5 years and we are at least 59 and a half when we want to take money out, all the growth from then on out is tax-free. And there's no required minimum distribution. So I don't have to take money out. I could just let this accumulate and leave it to my loved ones. And they're going to take it out tax-free too. They're going to have different withdrawal requirements than you are, but it's going to be tax-free.
Which is awesome.
Free's better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Free's
always.
Free's
always.
better.
Yeah.
So there's taxable, right? Like your wages are taxable today. There's tax deferred, like putting the money in your retirement plan. And then there's tax-free. So tax-free is, so tax deferred basically just means there's some tax obligation, we call it tax time bomb later when you take it out.
Ticking tax time bomb.
So you're going to have to take that money out of those retirement plans, pay the tax, and then the proceeds you can use to buy life insurance, or you could do the Roth. Now, we also, there's another way to do the Roth where, in our example, let's say you did a $100,000 conversion and then you owe $25,000 in tax. Well, the smarter way, in theory, is to pay the $25,000 out of another pocket, so that the whole $100,000 can be converted if you have that ability. If you have the ability to take the $25,000 out, pay Uncle Sam and your governor, then go ahead and do that. Now, why don't a lot of people do it? Because nobody likes writing that $25,000 check.
Right.
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 So,
right. You might not have $20,000 sitting in your bank, in your checking account, an extra 20 grand to cut that for the tax. If you do, it may be very beneficial, but it's a tough, to stroke a check for 20 grand is tough for anyone.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the concept, we could run numbers all the time. So just let's break it down real simply. Let's say your IRA is invested in IBM, just for our sake of our purposes, right? And your Roth is going to be invested in IBM, right? So they both are going to grow at the same rate from here on out to whenever. So the question is it better to keep it in the IRA, and 20 years down the road when you retire, that account is going to be whatever IBM grew to, but it's all going to be taxable. So if the tax rates are 40% back then, you probably would have been better off converting now, right? So if the tax rates are less than they are now, you'd probably been better off keeping it in an IRA. But look, these have been the lowest in history that I can recall. So why would you guess that they're going to be lower? So
yeah, I don't know.
So as long just take performance out of it. If you invest in the same thing, they're both gonna grow at the same rate, right? So,
so why wouldn't you want the tax free? I mean,
yeah,
it's like the old, you've heard it a million times, but would you rather pay tax on the seed or the harvest?
Right,
if you're a farmer, I mean, if you had a choice to just pay tax on the seed or just pay tax on the harvest, you'd take the seed because it's a lot less. I mean,
so that's a great example. So, I don't look, mathematically, it makes sense. Emotionally, when I tell people, look, you're going to send a $25,000 check into the IRS, they're like, well, what?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
that's a tough sell, but
yeah. So
if you have the ability, even if you have the ability, it's a tough sell, but the long-term benefits are huge. I mean, and people need to understand that their traditional IRAs and 401ks are joint accounts.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a joint account.
You probably only own 2/3 of that. Uncle Sam owns another third.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but
30%'s going to Uncle Sam. If you have $100,000, no, you don't.
Yeah, and in Minnesota, you have a state tax too, right?
Yep,
So
big one.
So between federal and state, it's probably at least 25%.
Yeah, it's closer to 30.
Yeah,
in Minnesota, it's probably closer to 30.
Now, the other downside is if you're working right now and you're in a higher tax bracket, you might not want to do that right now.
Right.
The other things we have to worry about with Roth conversions is this is taxable income. So if you take $100,000 out, it's going to go in your tax return, and it could affect other things. So like Social Security, where if you're retired, maybe you're not paying tax on your Social Security, or maybe you're paying very little on your Social Security. Now you're going to be paying tax on your Social Security.
Yeah.
So that's going to go up. The other thing is we have to keep it under what those called the IRMA limits for
Medicare.
For Medicare. If you go over a certain amount, if you're single or married, and you go over a certain amount of income, then they're going to increase what you pay for Medicare. I think that's criminal, but
I do too.
So
it's one of the worst rules. It's like,
it's like,
okay.
do you get more Medicare? No.
No.
So why am I paying more than anyone else? Because
because you had this income. Well, it's money I saved to live on. It's like I saved and worked hard for that, and you're going to penalize me by charging me more for healthcare? That's crazy. Yeah.
If I was president, no.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about on other shows. I think it's really criminal that our healthcare system doesn't cover long-term care.
It's
and you've been going through this with your mom or dad or grandparents or whatever. But
my parents.
I mean, how is it that someone could pay into if you're 80 years old, you've been paying into the healthcare system for possibly 65 years.
Yeah.
And your employer paid in.
Yep.
How is it when you need it the most? Like I could have probably, if I broke my arm, paid for it myself, right? But you need it the most, where it's $10,000 a month to keep someone in the nursing facility.
My mom's is $11,000 a month,
and the government says we're not paying. It's like, but I paid into the system for 65 years.
And people say, well, if you're completely broke, Medicaid will cover it. Well, no, wait, though.
Yeah.
They will cover it, but if there is any income, they will take it.
Oh, sure.
Like when my dad dies and my mom has been in there for 3 years, if my dad passes, the farm he inherited from his dad that I stand to inherit, I'm not going to get it. I'm never going to get that farm because they're going to take, my mom's been in long-term care 3 years at $11,000 a month, and Medicaid has been paying, right? Because my parents didn't have the money. My mom had no money. So guess what they're going to do? That's not free money. Medicaid is not free. They will take any assets that you have, or they'll look back 5 years from when she started, and any assets they had, they'll take. So they'll put a lien on that farm and they'll take that farm when my dad passes.
Hold on. for our viewers, how to protect your assets from the devastating costs of nursing homes. So we wrote a book on it a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's 295 pages in case you want to read it.
It's so important. I wish my parents had that book and my grandparents had that book, because now we're in a situation where, Medicaid secrets. But they will take the farm. And family farms in southern Minnesota where my parents live, so many families, all the kids I graduated with that grew up on farms, they've lost the farms because of long-term care, because of Medicaid.
So maybe you could buy it for pennies on a dollar, buy it back from them. But that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
Right? So we were talking about
Sorry, I didn't mean to get off there.
That's okay, because that's one of my favorite topics, because when we do
it's a crisis. You brought it up. It is a crisis in this country, and it is a crime that the government doesn't help with long-term care.
Especially when they waste money on other, I don't want to call it wasted, but they're not the most frugal spenders of our money, right?
No. I mean, there's other areas where if they would be willing to cut at least somewhere, they would be able to take care of it.
They don't even need to cut. They just need to be more fiscally responsible, right?
Right.
So, they don't have to spend $10,000 on a desk. They can spend $500 on a desk, right?
Right.
So it's not like you got to cut out getting a desk, but So again, another show. But so let's talk a little bit more taxes while we still got a little time. So another thing, what we can do while we're so any of your other non-retirement accounts, your brokerage accounts, like we use Schwab, and you might have after-tax money that you've been accumulating. You're buying stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever, right? So it might be a time what we call tax harvesting, tax loss harvesting. So right now, if you sell a stock and you have a $20,000 gain in that IBM stock, you're going to have to pay tax on $20,000. It might be capital gain, so maybe you're only paying 15%.
Right.
State, you can pay 20%. But if you can sell, hopefully you don't have any of these, but some people have, believe it or not, they have losers. Right? So you bought some stock years ago and you put $20,000 in it, it's worth $5,000 now. Right. So if you sell that, you create a $15,000 loss, and then you could offset it with any of the gains that you had on IBM. So maybe you can take those, what we call tax harvesting. So if you're selling a winner, maybe you sell a loser at the same time to offset those losses. Now there is a wash sale rule for tax purposes, which is kind of silly, but it only applies to losses, right? So if you sell a stock to create a loss and you buy it back within 30 days, you don't get to take the loss.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but
but if you sell it and you sell another stock that has losses, that's not a wash sale. So if you sell IBM at a gain and you sell XYZ at a loss, you can offset the gain and the loss. So we might want to do that as much as we can. Or some people are just selling stock, paying the tax while the tax rates are down to get some basis, right? So it's a cheap way to get basis. So, but you do have to send some money in. So
yeah. So to some of our listeners, Chris, what you're saying can get complicated, but that's why you're a tax specialist and you do taxes, Brookside Tax, CPAs. So you also do financial planning and understand the big picture. And that is the true benefit you offer.
I think the way we really look at it is like tax is just one part of your financial life. Like you have to take the big picture is your financial life.
Right.
Taxes, there's insurance, there's investments, there's those are all pieces of the puzzle. So we pride ourselves.
Taxes can affect all of those.
Right.
I mean, if it's money, there are tax considerations, right?
So we pride ourselves that we built a firm that has all lots of puzzle pieces. We have an insurance company, investment company, a tax company, and then we have a law firm that does all the estate planning and the nursing home protection planning. So it's a one-stop shop. You could come and get it. And there's not many places that have all 4 of those. Some of them will have 2. Some will maybe have 3, but it's rarely that you get all 4. But
very rare. I mean, I've worked with financial advisors and planners all over the country, and I've never personally worked with one where they had an
so good looking.
Okay, we're going to leave that one. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that.
For our YouTube watchers.
To have both tax and attorney to be able to do estate planning and taxes and be licensed in those areas. They may have tax planners they work with and attorneys they work with, but to have it under one roof and have that person, you driving the ship, who is a CPA and an attorney and looks at the big picture for people, that is very unique and very helpful when it comes to planning out retirement, planning on things like long-term care and taxes. And, it looks like, if Trump's promises come to fruition regarding taxes, we may be looking at a longer period of lower taxes. Possibly. I don't know how they can sustain that with the national debt, but we will find out. And
stop spending so much.
Well, yeah.
Right, buy the $500
problem. Here's the problem. Democrats and Republicans have come and gone, and in my lifetime, I've never seen them reduce spending.
Look,
so
it's easy to spend it when it's not your money.
Yeah, or when you print it.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's how we got into the inflation problem. We printed $7 trillion and shoved it into the economy.
So if you need to get a hold of us, it's our law firm is 216-485-1040. Our financial side is 440-886-3550, or you can catch us at brooksidetax.com. For our listeners, I probably should have ran that across the screen for our viewers, but I'm not technically savvy like that. and I logged into the generic version of StreamYard here, so I'm not sure how to do all that stuff. But
you got to get Tony Marlette, Anthony to help you.
Do you know they had another baby? He's off on paternity leave, so he should be back next week. His wife had a baby girl named Sophia.
Oh,
welcome to
the congratulations to Anthony.
Yeah.
You need to keep in the office more so he can stop having kids.
Yeah, no, baby. I want babies and mortgages for my staff, right? I want people that have to work, right?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Incentive. I see. Sure.
Yeah, babies and mortgages.
Yeah.
But, hopefully everyone will be blessed with a child. It's greatest blessing you'll ever have.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
So. Okay, Tony, we're about out of time. So you want to take us out?
All right. Well, it's been a great show, listeners. That does it for today's episode of The Road to Retirement with our host, Chris Anselmo.